Plot: Eyes in the Night, 1942. Written by Ron Kerrigan. Blind detective Duncan Maclain is visited by old friend Norma Laurie, looking for help in getting rid of one of her old beaus, who is courting Norma's 17-year-old stepdaughter. When the old beau is found murdered, Norma is the chief suspect until Duncan, aided by his guide dog Friday, pays a visit to her home and uncovers a plot to steal her husband's military secrets for the enemy. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over-dramatically touching people's faces. Or maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular generation. From tunnel vision to your television. And do they off this movie with audio descriptions? They're movie buffs who know their stuff. You'll be thoroughly entertained. Join Sky and Melissa throughout film history and Citizen White Cane.
Hello. And welcome to Citizen White Cane, the podcast that acts as your film and TV guide dog, locating blind characters and leading you straight to them. My name is Sky McLeod,
I'm Melissa Bhakta.
and we are talking about Eyes in the Night.
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is your week to pick, and
Yes.
boy, oh boy, what a pick this was.
What an interesting movie. It's from 1942, so it's made in the United States. We've just entered World War II within the last year.
Smack dab in the middle of the noir and gangster films.
Yes.
This movie, it was kind of like it was genetically grown in a lab to make me happy.
That's awesome. That's great. I was not sure exactly how to talk about this movie because it is just like a lot of characters. There's a lot of plot. And it's funny because the villains are Nazis, technically.
Right, Nazi spies, but yes, technically
But
Nazis.
like you would not necessarily know other than they have like a couple generically German names.
Yeah, I don't think the word Nazi is ever said in the
Definitely
film
not.
itself, but you read all the reviews and the plot summary, and it's like they foil a Nazi spy ring, and yes, technically they do, but you wouldn't know that from watching the movie.
They like maybe have a light accent, the Nazi characters occasionally, but they're not. It's very much. You would have to know. At one point we have one of our main, or I guess not. He's not actually in that much of the movie, but kind of a big plot. The MacGuffin. He creates the MacGuffin of the movie of trying to says something about how they are developing something that will help win the war. I think it's very vague. Yeah. Also, the way he says it's like the war, Which,
I love the fact that this MacGuffin really isn't. We know it's a formula, and that's all we know, and that's all we need to know. I really don't care. Honestly,
the movie doesn't want you to care.
Yeah, I mean, it is the definition of a MacGuffin. This is a thing that is here that everyone goes after to move the plot along.
Right. It's an American, I guess, government secrets. So I was just like, it's obviously the nuclear bomb. Like, come on, guys. But then
sure,
it's not.
Yeah.
But I think my brain was in a weird place of because it is such a weird time of the movie being made, not in just right at the beginning of our involvement in the war. It was just, a weird time, I think, to be making this story. So it distracted me, I think, in some ways.
I don't think it's really weird at all. I mean, if you think about the media that came out around World War I, World War II, this is very nationalistic, jingoistic stuff. I mean, even if you look at it through, comic books, Captain America, Superman, Wonder Woman, everybody was doing their part to fight the war effort, basically.
Right.
So this plot, MacGuffin, it really, when you think about when this was made, it really doesn't surprise me.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. It's just weird that it's like we now have just so much more information about what was going on at the time. I think that's what's weird to me is also and also that they were just that they don't say the word Nazi at all is weird to me as well. Because I was like, we knew we were fighting the Nazis back then. They just don't even mention their name. It's weird.
I think, and I guess my pushback on that would be there was so much other media that was overt.
That's true.
And saying it. So
I guess I was like, that'll be fun to watch.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah. So I think that this film doesn't necessarily say it or give off any of those clues. You don't need to.
Yeah.
You're right. Someone in 1942 watching this is going to put the pieces together.
Right. Well, and even we could do that in 2021. So, you know,
Yes.
it's just, I just thought it was kind of funny. I was expecting it to be a little bit more on the nose, I think, also. It was just like, but that's because I think, okay, so that would be if it was genetically engineered to be something I loved, would be if it was like overly propagandistic. What, I don't know what the right way of saying that would be, but if it was like really not anti-Nazi propaganda stuff, I'd be like, I would enjoy that a lot. But no, it's just kind of, it is about a blind man. That's why we're doing the podcast.
Yes. Maclain, or Mac, as everyone calls him.
Yeah.
Played by Edward Arnold, and apparently this is not his first go around as a detective.
And it wasn't his last go around as playing Mac, the blind detective, as part of this universe.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I need more Mac in my life. Well, oh my God!
Why don't now? Since I picked this movie, anytime you can pick the sequel to watch.
I'm so pumped. I want more. I want a sequel. I want a series. I want T-shirts. Let's go. Let's make this happen. I want plush Fridays.
You're Mac's biggest fan.
It was so good. I am Mac's biggest fan. It was, oh my God, it was so good. It's preposterous, but it was so good.
I would love to. Well, you're breathing the excitement, so I would love you to talk more about Mac.
Oh my God. Okay, so I mean, obviously, you know, comes with the whole. You know, Mac is a white guy in the 40s, so you know he has all the privilege and can throw his weight around and everything. Even though he is, you know, blind, and characters are mentioning it, not necessarily constantly, but there definitely are a couple of remarks. You know, oh my God, he's blind. Don't worry about him. Oh, he's blind. You know, what could he possibly do?
Right.
And I love the fact that he is just smart and clever and uses what he has, and he uses it to an absolute advantage to foil these people. And it's not just, oh, he's blind so he can do stuff in the dark or whatever. That happens, obviously. Like the cliches, classic. All those cliches are here, but
he doesn't drive, I don't think so.
No, he doesn't drive. I just didn't care because they used them so well. And they came up with new things. His whole act as Norma's uncle to infiltrate the house,
right,
and play this horrible, raucous, you know, gross drunk uncle character.
Yeah,
that is so cool. And I'm not saying a sighted person couldn't do that, because obviously, you know, anyone can put on an act or whatever. But it was so cool and so resourceful.
Yeah, he really like plays up the
and not only does he play it up, he plays it up so that people will leave him alone.
Right.
And because no one...
Or not be onto him.
Right,
yeah.
Right, because he's a blind drunk guy. No one is going to suspect him. And yet, here he is working behind the scenes and putting together this case and solving this case. And, you know, and he's aided by his extremely talented, if preposterous, guide dog Friday.
Yeah, Friday is probably the most preposterous aspect of,
and you know what,
I mean, because he is a super crip, definitely.
Oh, definitely. But you know what, I'm okay with that. I don't care. I really don't care.
So funny. It is like the guide dog, that is like the specific, like, I think Friday is our most super, like, I feel like we need a term for not, like, you have the super crip, but you have the super guide dog. And, like, I think Friday is, like, even more than Mr. Magoo, I feel like. He's just, like, the amount of things that Friday is getting, like, their teamwork is just, it is preposterous.
It's so great. It's preposterous, but it's so much fun to watch.
It is fun.
It is so cool. I mean, there's moments where Mac will get trapped in a room, and someone is entering the room in Paul's apartment. He gets trapped in a bedroom, and Gabriel comes in, and so he has like Friday hide under the bed, and then he hides in a closet or in a dark corner of the room or something.
Yeah.
To try and get out of the way. But yeah, they're totally a team. He he sends Friday out with messages. He sends Friday to go get help.
Yeah.
Basically to get his assistant Marty, who, to bring the police.
Yeah, it is a like
that's a whole sequence.
There's a lot of he gets, as a character, gets so much to do. I was also like, wow, this is kind of like a lot of work to get this, like how much Friday does is I'm like just on the end of filming it, it'll be like, oh, seems like it would have been a hard shoot because he's doing so much of this movie. He's running around, he's doing all this, but and he opens doors constantly.
Yeah, he opens doors, he climbs through windows, he figures out how to escape from places. He is an attack dog, which guide dogs never are.
Well, that's the thing, is a lot of the things I'm like, this is not what a guide dog's supposed to do, which is like, that's a classic thing that we've run up against many times, where it's like, this is, come on, it's not a guide dog behavior. But but this is, you can't. It's funny because I think with the blindness, you're more trying to be like, okay, maybe, he can do all this stuff. But with Friday, I'm like, that is just completely not a guide dog's training.
But it's just so cool because they could have, because he's got Marty, his quote unquote eyes. Like, they could have just given him Marty and relied on Marty, but they didn't. Marty only comes in a couple of times during the entire movie, but it's just Mac and Friday for most of it, having to get out of these situations.
You underestimate a blind man and his dog in a way that you wouldn't if a blind man had of seeing a dog, even though Marty is a lot dumber than the two of them.
Yeah, poor old Marty. But I think that's just so much more fun and interesting to follow Mac and Friday around rather than Mac and Marty.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And it works way better with the conceit. I mean, this is in a weird way. It's like so freaking complicated. This plot is like, I mean, if you've not seen this movie, you're hearing us talk about it, we're saying a lot of random names without a lot of context. If we were to give context, that would be pretty much this entire podcast. I don't know how much we should really give.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. Like, you say the plot is complicated, and I agree. I understand. I believe you. But as someone, and I am not a noir expert, but I enjoy the genre very much, and I enjoy mysteries and private eye stuff. Like, my job is at a murder mystery place.
Yeah.
So like this, I did not find it that confusing. I really didn't. I wasn't angry that I didn't know all of the characters' names because I know all of the good guys' names, the main bad guys, and then the thugs. So just separating everyone out into those categories. But I mean, it starts off kind of like your standard detective movie. You've hard-boiled gumshoe private eye, and then you have a pretty lady. So
that part I got. I was like, yes, I clicked it, and then I was like, oh, wow, this is getting more and more complicated.
Norma walks in the room, and I'm just like, oh, I'm home. Like, I know exactly where I am. I honestly didn't find the plot super complicated. In the beginning, with the whole stuff with Paul and Norma and Barbara, I was a little okay. What's happening here? But as it slowly went on, I just was never confused.
Yeah, just like, but explaining the whole, like, I know what happened, but to talk about it, we have to like give the plot, and that's the problem. It's like, I think it would take just as long to explain the plot as the movie is, like, because it's like, I mean, there is the part that you just explained is the first 5 minutes of the movie. And then
true. And
then there's another hour and a half of the movie where things are happening every moment. I mean, you just have a bunch of characters, and I have to admit some of the characters were too many white people, that none of which looked all that different from each other to me.
You're
like
right.
So I was just like very confused by who was like, and there are so many people on all the different sides where I actually, there were many times where I was like, wait a second, are these all the villains? Is this one the villain? Like, it was just, there was too many characters and they did not look different enough that I actually was unable to track that.
I totally get that. No, it's a bunch of white people.
Yeah.
that all sound a little bit similar.
Yeah. Of that mid-Atlantic,
right? And maybe
40s.
It's because I've seen more and I'm used to that style of talking. So for the first couple of minutes, I was a little like, and then I really fell back into it, and I just understand and can understand that speech pattern. So everybody sounds different to me,
right?
Which is
That's good. Yeah, I think my not as much experience, that could have been what was messing me up, as everyone was like, oh, mid-Atlantic 40s movie actor talking. Absolutely. And that was like literally everyone for me. So I was just like, I can't. That's why I wanted the German, like I wanted them to have an accent or something so I could like sort of, like, because that would have helped me know who was the bad guys. But no, they don't really have, I mean, because they're supposed to be hiding in plain sight. So that's why it wouldn't really make sense.
Oh, I loved that about these bad guys though. Like, yeah, their plan is stupid, you know, and is silly, but I love the fact that they're right there and they're hiding in plain sight, and you find out that basically the theater company that Barbara's working for are essentially the bad guys, and this playwright goes from, you know, stage manager, playwright, director, whatever her role was, and then all of a sudden she's this leader of this Nazi spy ring. It's great.
It is very funny. It is great. So weird that she is she's such a weird character. I never understood her character that well.
I wouldn't say that this movie has any of the like later noir femme fatales, which is kind of disappointing.
Everyone kind of like veered into femme fatale and then just kind of veered out of it. Not enough. Norma. Yeah.
Not enough. Like femme, like, okay, this is an obvious choice, but femme fatale, I'm talking like Barbara Stanwyck's sex pot femme fatale.
No, I was waiting for that because like Barbara, the stepdaughter, like at the beginning, she's like weirdly aggressive about like how she's dating an abusive guy, and but then it's like obviously written by a man who's never been in an abusive relationship, because you're like, what the fuck? How are people acting this? This makes no logical sense the way people are acting.
And Barbara here is played by a very young Donna Reed. Yay. Yeah. Donna Reed is amazing. But her performance is, she's this reckless youth, the recklessness of youth. That's how her performance was described in some of the reviews that I read. Right. I'm just like, yeah, you bet. Because I don't understand Barbara's character. Not gonna lie.
She does not behave how a human woman would.
No. I'm just.
So I was like, it would be fun if she was kind of a femme fatale at the end. I was hoping for that, but then she just kind of
because then all of a sudden, you know, Paul dies and we're all trapped in the house, and the Nazi spies have been revealed or whatever, and she kind of just is very submissive. And
she just becomes super submissive after and just being fades like into the background. So like unreasonably aggressive about her. Yeah, and then she was like, oh, whatever, I'm, you know.
Right. And I'm like, well, okay, what happened to everything else that we just set up? You know, I'm not saying she would go in there guns blazing and, you know, tackle spies or whatever, but I think she'd be a little bit more vocal about what's happening.
Changes. Like, yeah, she does feel like a different character once her whole thing about like, because she is dating Norma's ex, which is also like very problematic. This is the 40s.
It's just super weird.
Yeah.
But we see Paul in one scene with Norma, and Paul gives a very, you know, incredible performance of love and everything, and Norma isn't, and I love it. Norma's just not buying it. She's just like, oh, that was so delightful. You're a ham, and just walks away. Like, oh, yes.
It is really funny.
It's a great scene. I quite enjoyed that. And Paul goes home to his apartment where Norma goes to confront him, and she finds Paul dead. And she also ends up meeting up with Barbara at the apartment, because this was after they had fought about Barbara going out with Paul.
Yeah. There's a lot of I'm struggling because I'm used to like, okay, this is the like main plot points, but yeah, you can't really do that because we've done the first 10 minutes of the movie now, and we've skipped over all of Mac's parts in the first 10 minutes.
Okay, well,
no, it's true. I mean,
go back.
Yeah, no. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just like, I don't know how to talk about the plot because it is so much, just so much back and forth of things. But
the bulk of the movie takes place at their house, at Laurie's house.
Right.
For a second, I forgot their last name.
Yeah, because this is the new husband.
Right, the scientist.
To be husband. Well, her last name's Laurie, so I guess he's current husband.
Yeah, because she's Barbara's stepmom. So, and they are in a very beautiful, nice, wonderful, loving relationship.
It's so funny when he goes on a plane and they were going to go together and she's like, well, but I should stay just in case we get into a plane crash and we both die, and then who's going to take care of Barbara? And he's like, wow, you're so smart. I was like, what if we still did that today? Be like, we're going to fly separately just in case.
I'm just not going to go. I've had a thought about it and I'm just not going.
Just in case the plane goes down. Just such a funny, like, I mean, I guess, like, really it makes more sense at this point to do that in cars. Like, what if everyone is just like, I'm gonna take a separate car just in case we die in a car crash, and then who's gonna take care of our child?
Well, they weren't going to fly separately. She stayed home expressly to look after Barbara.
Well, no, her reason for staying home was she was like, I'll come and meet you and I'll stay home just because if we fly together, the plane could crash, and then who would take care of Barbara? That is her actual line, which I just thought was so funny, which is why I remembered it. But it's just a ploy to kind of deal with Barbara's relationship with her ex. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's some of the setup. But then we have our, Mac is what can we say about him? He's got a lot of stuff. He does a lot of stuff.
Mac is tailing Paul because Norma had asked him to, and so Mac and Marty and Friday end up at Paul's apartment. They end up at Paul's apartment because Norma had reported Paul dead to them and not the police, so they go to investigate and the body's gone.
Right.
This is kind of cool because I'm thinking, okay, well, how, Mac, obviously Mac can't see. So how is Mac going to investigate and look for clues and do all the stuff that a 1940s noir detective needs to do? And Marty is there with him at this point. And it's just really cool to see them work as a unit because Marty is describing, the room and what's there and the way things look and appear to be. And Mac is the one who is
thinking
and who ends up getting on the floor and finding that the rug has been taken away because of the way the dust was laying.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying a sighted person couldn't find that either, but that's cool. It's little things like that a person who's only using their hands or their other senses might notice.
Well, it's kind of cool because I was also thinking about how, like, even if you're two-sighted, people being able to name all the things in the room would help you to, like, draw attention to different things that you might not have just by actually using your eyesight. So it kind of creates a cool dynamic of, like, you're getting to both, like, list off what's there, and then that can kind of turn into ideas of what might be important to look at. So I think I did really like that part of it, the kind of the investigating part, though really that's something that kind of like is to, at the beginning to set it up, but then most of what Mac is doing during it is more kind of like reacting to the current situation and making people, trying to get them to a place of safety or get them to mitigate what's going on. Like it's like it's not as much of the detective stuff after that part.
It's not pure sleuthing. It isn't finding a clue that leads you to another clue and then you find
then you figure out what's going on. It's way more if it is just like, it's a little bit more kind of almost superhero crip or super crip kind of like trying to avoid danger.
Well, yeah, and because he in the apartment after Marty leaves, and when Mac and Friday are looking through Paul's bedroom, Gabriel comes in, and he's the one he's also part of the plot, and he phones Vera, his wife, who is
such a sexist character.
Yeah, I know. Poor Vera. Pour one out for Vera, folks. I feel really sad for Vera, but
she's a hysterical woman that again is not a human woman
that gets slapped and thrown around and then dies in the end.
Yeah.
But Gabriel phones Vera because they're married, and then Mac finds out that Vera and Hansen. I'm gonna say Hansen. Is it Henderson or Hansen?
I think it's Hansen.
I think it's Hansen. Yeah, Vera and Hansen and Gabriel had just newly been hired by Barbara to work as servants in their house. So that's how all of that's connected. So that leads Mac over to Barbara's house.
Right.
And then he has to take on this guise of Uncle Mac, of the drunken uncle.
Yeah.
Not only to feed Norma information, but to find out about the spy plot itself, basically.
Right. Though because he mostly because he even gives Vera information. He does this whole thing where he's like, has this false pretense of needing a button sewed in, and uses that to like write her notes, which I was like, wow, this is pretty good handwriting for someone who can't see what he's writing.
Right. He must have not recently gone blind, but he must have had sight enough to know letters.
Yeah,
I mean,
because he's a braille reader, so he doesn't like have like we don't. He doesn't seem to have a single bit of vision. So
I think he might have light sensitivity, because he can tell in scenes with Norma when they were in the house and she'd turn on a light, he tells her to turn the light off. So I think he has
I guess he must
some
have
light
some sensitivity, but I thought but it could also be like, oh, he's just joking around, because he's like, it's the point is like, he's like, turn off the light, I want to do some reading, and she's like, what? And he's like, do you know what braille is?
Right.
I
read with my fingers. Yeah.
Which is very ridiculous.
Yeah. But I mean, and then again, he could have just heard the click of a light switch and been like,
or just assumed if she was
off.
in the room that he was that the light was on before, like just kind of like context clues.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he, given the fact that he was able to write, and he like almost wrote in pretty good lines, I was like, this is kind of weird, but that's not like the preferred blind person form of communication is writing, even though like it's easier than us trying to read what someone's writing. It's still not easy for us to just be like, oh, nice writing, and that he just like does it from such a far distance so she can read while he's like having a fight with her. But
a fight in air quotes.
Fight, yeah, which I would just be like, if I was doing that, if I was yelling at someone while writing, I would just like accidentally write some of the words I was saying. Because that's how my brain works. But yeah, so but a lot of what he's doing in that whole, like, you know, this is like what, 25 minutes into the, or 30 minutes maybe into the movie that we have, like, that they're just basically in that house for the rest of it, and he is mostly, you know, trying to like, yeah, I guess he does a little bit of sleuthing still. Like he like walks the perimeter of the place and is like trying to listen in for like their talking, I believe.
Right. He goes searching in the greenhouse.
Oh yeah.
And that's how that's when Vera dies, because he and Friday are in the greenhouse and the men have come out with Vera and she's being hysterical and basically bludgeon her to death, essentially. I thought she just got knocked out, but then one of the other thugs looks over and goes, oh, she's dead. So they put her in the car and drive away.
Yeah, well, you don't even see what happens, just like a bang.
Right. She
not
just
says
says,
we're blind. But
right.
Yeah.
She's like, my husband. And
I thought maybe it was like, I was like, did she get shot? Like, or something? It's weird. But yeah, so that's how Mac knows that she was killed by them. But yeah, he's just kind of trying to get information, but also kind of fighting them and trying to keep them safe.
and then the bit where he gets caught by Hansen and he's still trying to feed information to Norma, and he makes the excuse about, you know, oh, I'm a night owl, da da da. Oh, yeah. And then Hansen brings up the brandy, and he's like, oh yes, brandy, let's have some brandy. And Hansen brings it to his room, and obviously my thought is, oh God, he's poisoned it. He's poisoned the brandy. Don't drink it. Don't drink the brandy. You know, and of course Mac is smart enough to know that, but Max sniffs it and proclaims, you know, the year of the brandy and how good it is, and da-da-da-da, and then gets Hansen to leave him alone. And then we find out that there was a sleeping draft that had been placed in the brandy, and Mac knew about it because when he took a whiff of the brandy, there was enough of it in there to knock out 3 elephants.
Yeah, which, can blind people tell that? I guess so.
I don't know. I mean, granted, I've never been drugged.
Right, you would have to I mean, I guess if you're like a private eye guy that I don't know, that's probably something you might seek out, figuring out how to smell it.
I mean, I've been told that drugs and things, GHB in particular, aka the date rape drug, but that drug in particular, it tastes very salty. And so that's what I've been told. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this field. I don't think anyone, I'm not sure if anyone could smell something like that had been put in brandy.
And especially to know exactly how many elephants had been killed, would be killed by it.
Right. Knock out 3 elephants. Yeah. I just thought it was another fun little, oh my God, look at him. He's pulling the wool over the stupid butler's eyes. Ugh. It's so silly. It's so ridiculous. Silly. But I just was so in it. I was having so much fun.
It is. My absolute favorite one was the Braille cards. I love that one so much.
My gosh. Yeah.
He's like this thug is watching is been tasked to watch him, make sure he doesn't do anything dumb, and so he's like, is it okay if I play solitaire? And he's like, and then he goes on this like thing of explaining, like he's like, don't play poker with a blind person because we have Braille on our poker cards, so we'll deal you a deck of we'll deal you cards and we'll know which cards you have because I can like feel them each time I put a card down, which sure, that's kind of funny. And then he's like, here, I'll demonstrate. And he does a handful of cards, this long scene, and then he's like, here, let me show you a trick. And he's like, it's like you just make 3, you deal out 3 cards, and then he's like, okay, now put your hands on it, and he just smacks him in the face.
Yes. Oh my God, every single step to that scene, to that trick, was just chef's kiss. I mean, oh my God.
That was my favorite because it's just like one of those things where you're like, what is he going to do with these cards?
Right.
You're like, what? I guess he could just get him close enough to punch him, but then you're like, that can't be it. And then it isn't. You're like, that's so funny. It's just so funny.
As soon as I figured it out when he had him put his hands on the table, I was like, oh my God, he's going to, and then it happened, and I just cheered. It's just so good.
Because it's like he's doing all these mind games too, which is why I thought it was so funny. Because I was like, really, the best he could do is just punch the guy. But that is what he does.
But you have to make sure the guy is lined up. So you know
exactly.
where in space he is.
Yeah, it's true. Unless he's talking, you could give a pretty good sense probably of where he is, but which he does for some of it. But so it's not 100% like you could, but it is very funny to me.
Well, and you could definitely say Mac's fighting style is running into people and flailing around and hoping that you can take them to the ground, which happens multiple times.
Yeah, he's so surprisingly good at
he's here to wrestle people.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. You definitely he does have that feeling of just being like, okay, well, this guy is kind of untouchable. It's just like
sure, a little bit. Yeah, like he's always one step ahead of the bad guys.
Right.
Which again, totally fine with here, honestly.
Yeah, I think
not going to find any complaints from me.
It's interesting how there's been a cultural shift, not even that long ago. Like, I feel like it was in the last decade that you're just kind of like, people are like, don't want to watch movies about someone who's just untouchable. Like, you have to make them seem vulnerable and human.
Sure, because we're so used to the anti-hero. We're so used to, we don't necessarily, as humans or as film-going people, necessarily want to watch a movie about someone who just can never have anything happen to them.
Right.
That's boring. Now, this is an 80-minute movie from 1942. I'm fine with it. Yeah. I'm not necessarily going to hold it to the standard of Christopher Nolan movie or something.
Yeah, I think it just makes you wonder, because sometimes new trends in film, you're like, okay, this is kind of dumb, and you are weirdly nostalgic for other things. But this one, I was like, I don't know. I think overall, I'm like, it does sometimes bother me when someone's untouchable, because I just feel less invested. I'm just like, well, I know you're going to figure this out, so I don't really have to pay attention.
Right. Right. I didn't, sorry, not to,
No.
I never felt any tension in this movie necessarily. I always thought, you always know Mac is going to solve the case and people are going to be fine and everything's going to be wrapped up with a bow, which it is. Yeah. What I found more fun is watching Mac and Friday's exploits and cheering for them.
Yeah.
And just watching that. I didn't necessarily care about how it ended. I was just here for the ride, mostly.
Yeah. It's a bit more of a dance of... It's interesting because it's Wait Until Dark is a very similar... Has a lot of similar vibes to it.
But you could cut that movie's tension with a knife.
It's so much more real.
Right. That movie has a bad guy. Never once did I think anything of the bad guys in this movie. There's
so many of them, and it's so unclear what their motives are.
Their
motive, right.
but they're just means to an end. Yeah. They're just more people that Mac and Friday can smash.
Right.
That's it.
There's a lot of them. I think that was something for me that I wanted there to be some sort of moral, like, heart of, like, the one side morality and one side had it, like, because I just felt like I never understood why they really needed, I mean, I guess, like, government secrets, you want that? I don't understand why he's putting it in his house and it's not, like, in a base somewhere. That didn't make any sense to me. It's not like the government, that, like, the military is just random people in their homes just chilling. Like, that's not real. But then the villains are just kind of, they don't have, like, it's not, you don't even understand, like, they're not, like, talking to Hitler either. They're just just kind of, like, random people that seem to just be citizens, like, among them. Like, they don't really seem like they're from anywhere else.
And I think that maybe that was the point, is because maybe the movie is warning you about, Nazi sympathizers that are living among you in this country, and you just never know.
Which is great at a time where we're, interning, like, putting, like, jailing people because they're Japanese, basically. Kind of like the implications of that.
But then wouldn't the bad guys have been Japanese or Asian?
But it's kind of like the idea that, like, why people who were Japanese Americans were, like, basically put in concentration camps,
right,
was because it's like, any Japanese person could be a sympathizer of the government. And so, like, even though, like, we gave the Nazis jobs at, like, NASA,
yes,
after the war.
True.
So, like, so we were happy to have the Nazis, like, waiting in the wings in general. Like, I think that was something that the government never fully went against.
Because they had things that our government could use.
Right. Well, but that was the thing, is, like, there was a weird double standard, I think, in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And in the end,
absolutely.
the Nazis did a lot more, like, real harm. Like, and it does kind of feel like the implication of the movie is just, like, it's not like that just anyone could be the enemy, and that does play more into Japanese concentration camps to me than it does, like, the NASA Nazis, even though, because they at least had accents. You at least knew they were from Germany, I believe.
So what I'm hearing is you wanted more cartoonish accents.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, especially German ones. Yeah, it's hilarious. I love a good, like, I love a good like, Nazi hiding with it, like, badly put on American accent, and then just, like, becoming German all of a sudden in, like, the most extreme way. Oh, I love it so much. I mean, I do love, like, anti-Nazi propaganda stuff,
of course,
a lot. So this is a bias of mine. I think that there wasn't enough overt Nazi stuff in it.
You should watch some of the first season of the old Wonder Woman TV show, the 77 one. Oh, the first season is all about Nazis. Yeah. It's great.
Love a good fighting against Nazi narrative.
You would love it. It's fantastic. All the bad guys are German. They're all Nazis, and she kicks all of their asses.
Love
it's
it
great.
So much. I do love that stuff so much. It's so funny. But yeah, this movie, it's kind of, the bad guys are so nebulous of, like, what their whole deal is. Like, what are they working for anyone? We don't really know. Like, it's not really explicit.
I mean, I did enjoy the reveal of the playwright being the ringleader of the circuits of bad guys, and the fact that they had been working at this plot for a while. I mean, the fact that the servants had to be, those particular servants, were hired by Barbara so that they could have access to the house, and then Barbara was cast in this play so that so that the playwright could have access to her. I mean, it's stupid.
It is
crazy, just how many pieces and moving parts and everything, but it's
kind of funny.
It's so funny.
Well,
it's
at
great.
least it's like they're all connected to a family that they're wanting the things, so those things, I think, in some ways it's like, okay, yeah, I could kind of, like, this, even though, yes, it's ridiculous they did all that work, at least it makes more sense, because it's like, yeah, you're targeting a certain family, so it makes sense to target the family by trying, in whatever way possible. I just wish we knew what their whole deal was more. Like, I wish we knew why they were doing it. And we don't really find that out.
No, there's no motivation. They're doing it because they're bad guys, and they want to steal it and, I don't know, sell it or for money or whatever. Or, well, no, they're going to give it back to Germany. But all of that is inferred. It's
right.
None of it's
ever stated. Like, they literally could be anyone. They could, they could probably be Italian, like spies for all we know.
Yeah,
it's just very unclear.
Yep. I don't know. I just don't mind it. I didn't mind because the bad guys weren't the point.
Yeah, they're not. I think Mac. I mean, he's a fun character to watch, and you want him to you do want to watch him. You're right. I just wanted it to be. I just wanted them to be Nazis more overtly.
I get that. I get it. They would have been more fun. Like I love rooting for a Mac and for a good noir detective or whatever. But I mean the fun thing about noir and like something like Double Indemnity, the fun thing is the villains too.
Right.
And
exactly.
It's kind of fun to root for the bad guys every now and again too.
Yeah, and or to at least hate them a lot.
Right.
So that because these guys, you're just kind of like, what is their whole deal? Like, you don't, and you never fully understand their plan as well, which I was like, what are they doing? What is going on? Like, a lot of it was me trying to catch up, which I felt, very like, oh, I'm also blind, but unlike Mac, I don't even know what's going on. I'm watching the movie. Like, I don't even know what the plot is. I don't understand. But it is like, it's pretty. It is noir, so you do have like a lot of. You even have a wait until dark moment of like a black screen.
Yes. Oh my God, that was so fantastic. Hansen thinks that he's trapped Mac in the basement, and Mac puts the lights out, and then Hansen comes downstairs and is like, "Oh, I can't do." And then Mac gives this great line. He's like, oh, "I can't." Eyes in the night, or something like that. But then he says, "My kingdom." And then just goes to town on the guy, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's like, cheese. Give me more, please."
This is like one of the real tropes we're finding. Like, this is,
but it was done so well.
It was, yeah. It was definitely.
Great. It's great, and then of course Hansen is trying to shoot him and misses because.
You're in the dark.
You're in the dark, and Mac has a full set of plot armor,
and he knows exactly 6 bullets in this gun based on the sound of it.
Yeah,
I guess
something like that. Yeah, he knows exactly what kind of gun it is. He knows he only has 6 bullets.
It's so silly.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's really funny.
Gosh. And so he's able to subdue the butler.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is so funny, some of the stuff. I mean, I think there's always, like, now that we've watched a handful of movies with these kinds of things, like, I feel like there's almost, like, a list that you have to, like, make in your head of, like, what can blind people do? Like, how could we, like, what are, like, other sensory ways? Because, like, you do a lot of, like, mysteries and things there's a lot of, like, oh, this blood stain on this little, part of the, like, very visual things.
It's all of these little tiny details.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes very fun, and then other times you're like, okay, that's kind of a stretch. I think there's always a balance of that, and I think every movie we watch like this is kind of some combination of like, okay, fine, whatever. That's, smelling the soap or whatever is just like, okay.
Sure. I mean, it's movie logic. You have to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah, you definitely do. But it's interesting because it's like, yeah, I think, like, no matter what, if you are a completely abled person watching, like, Sherlock Holmes, you're still suspending your disbelief.
Oh, yeah,
that, like, he could do all that shit. Like, it's not, like, I always wonder how much of it is, like, is this supposed to be things that we look at and are like, oh, I bet, like, this makes me feel like I could do this, even if I know it's not true. Like, are you supposed to feel it that way? Or are you supposed to be like, this is someone so, above what I could ever do?
Honestly, watching Mac, even though it's all heightened, and especially, Friday is completely heightened, I kept finding it really entertaining and fun to imagine myself in his shoes. And if you think about it, all of the techniques he's using, all the things he's doing are something that sighted people could do.
Right.
There are definitely things that he's better at and that he can do and has a bit of an advantage on because he's blind.
Right.
But
which that stuff's fun.
Right. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really fun to watch someone and be like, yeah, I that would be really fun to do, either in a play or for real or, whatever. It would still be really fun to do. I also think this movie would work pretty good on stage since there's only 3 locations.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And you could totally nip that in the bud and just have the whole thing set at her house.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a fictional character, it could be fun, like, to play him. Though I do think I have to admit I didn't spend a lot of time, like, thinking, oh, I could do that. Or, like, a lot of the stuff I was just like, oh, that's not how I would behave in this situation.
Yeah,
like, it was just, like, there was very little that I really gleamed onto. And I don't know why that is exactly. Like, I think that, I mean, I don't read Braille, so that's one thing.
Right,
but, like,
right.
I think that, you know, even though my senses might be heightened, it's interesting. A lot of these movies, I'm like, I don't think I would be able to do that. I think there's just, like, it is scary. I mean, I think maybe there is just, like, constant anxiety of, like, you're unsafe because you are blind and, like, you're gonna have a disadvantage. And so I think that, like, that weird fight or flight thing I'm always like, I don't think I could even stay calm in this situation, let alone, like, figure out a whole mystery, you know, or piece things together.
That's another thing that's really cool about Mac is he's incredibly calm under pressure, and he's just doing his thing.
Yeah. You have to be in those characters.
Doesn't break a sweat, you know, or he's putting on his Uncle Mac persona. I mean,
that's fun. I would love to be. Yeah. I would love to play a gregarious character. I think that was the part when he's pretending to be Uncle Mac and drunk and stuff. I'm like, that's the stuff I would find fun to do. But a lot of the stuff that he's able to do, I was just like with the, you know, like the gunshots or something. I'm like, that's just terrifying. Yeah, like, that's just scary. It's not like, I don't feel like, oh, that would be fun if I could tell what a gun is. I also know that I don't think that's possible to, like, know exactly how many bullets a gun can take just by the sound of it.
Right. And I mean, I think the cool thing about him and especially his Uncle Mac persona is just the way that he is manipulating everybody in this house.
Right.
When he's Uncle Mac and when he's himself. Yeah. He is totally in control and manipulating the entire situation. Right. And that's so cool.
I think that's definitely the fun part of it, is when he's, like, pretending to be something that he isn't in that moment, and that's the part I empathize the most with him. I think it was just maybe that I was watching a movie and couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, that made me be like, okay, well, I don't think if I was in that situation, I wouldn't even be able to keep track of all the characters and who they were. But I think that, like, him getting to play very, like, you know, big characters as kind of like a cover, I think that stuff's pretty fun. Or making up lies in the moment. I think it's like the kind of more cognitive stuff that I found fun and empathized with, but some of the more just kind of like putting things together, I was just like, it was hard for me to follow, and I feel like when I'm with a bunch of new people, I just get overwhelmed.
Oh, definitely. No, yes, and I hear that. I think it was just easier for me to just excise all of the people from the story I didn't care about, and
that's good,
and be hyper focused on what Mac and Norma were doing.
I bet it's that having the comfortableness of the Mid-Atlantic accent that you could then actually tell any voices apart from each other, whereas for me, I'm like, it all sounds like the same, like, I mean, male-coded, female-coded voice.
Yeah, either that or all of not 2020, but I'm usually playing a detective or killing people, you know, 4 or 5 times a month with my job.
There you go. Yeah, your job is to be either Mac or one of the Nazis, I guess.
Yeah, I love it. I actually I'm going to show my director this movie because I would love to model my detective character off of Mac.
Yeah.
I think that would be dope. So just dope as hell. I think that would be amazing.
I'm really glad I brought this movie, because that is
me too.
That makes me enjoy the movie more, thinking about you making that a character like that.
I think that, because my detective is already like this, you know, Bronx doesn't take crap type of person. So yeah, New York doesn't take any crap from nobody. You know? or maybe that's more New Jersey. I don't know. I can't do accents. I'm sorry.
Could you do the Mid-Atlantic accent?
No, and I want to learn. I can.
Well, this movie has a lot of those.
I know, and I found myself trying to repeat lines
and
things in
Isn't that how you learn how
accent.
To do it?
Yes, I just need to watch more of them. Yeah, like everything Donna Reed and Anne Harding say, I want to learn how to say it.
Yeah, the way they talk is so
it's
perfect.
so beautiful. It's so classy and just so extra. It's so extra.
It's very
oh my
extra.
God.
I was just like, wow, we do
it.
not act like this anymore in movies. It's
no,
very
and
funny.
the reason why that whole thing started was when it's New England, because a lot of people who went through the acting schools and went through elocution training and diction training and everything, that was the how the way they learned to speak.
Right, which it was never a real accent. It was just made up.
No, it was completely made up.
Yeah.
It is a blending of New England American and British.
Yeah, it is so bizarre. And then it's like, well, because that was at a time where movies were not supposed to be real.
Right.
Which is also part of the reason why he's so that's almost goes into the same kinds of ways of thinking about it. I mean, like, they're just stage plays that were, directed in a way to make them visual.
And especially in the 30s, movies were the escape. People couldn't afford to do anything, but everybody had like 10 cents, 5 cents in their pocket or whatever to go see a movie. Yeah. And you could leave your very shitty existence for an hour, and go see these larger than life people in far off places and crazy plots and everything. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
I like 1939 was everyone says the best year for movies.
Yeah.
It's the title.
I like it. I enjoy the mid-Atlantic accent. I enjoy listening to it, especially when women are talking in it.
Yeah, and just the hysterical, which is technically a different character, but like the way these women are written is very funny, and like you can tell that a lot of the dialogue between them is like probably as written, but I don't know how much a script was that specific in 42. I'm not really sure. Yeah. But it is so great. I mean, there is like just definitely, even if nothing else, but for like the ability to parody it's so great because it's just not even like it is just. So, I mean, it's often parodied, but it's so specific and great of like a cultural artifact, the way that they talk. But it does make it hard, especially for all the white men to like just even understand who's who. So it does make it harder.
I enjoy the way they speak. They speak very clearly.
Yes.
And see, that's not even, I know that's not right.
That's close though. What is and Barbara's always like darling or something. She's
darling, dearest, everyone, no matter if you're related or mother dear, father dear, oh Mac dear, Mac darling.
It's so funny.
It's so great. Yeah. The only thing that I didn't really didn't like, or I thought was kind of gross, was the ending when we find out that apparently Barbara is going to go out with Mac or whatever, and everyone is just totally okay with this. And I'm like, Barbara, oh my God. First of all, you're a child. You are 17 and Mac
be dating
is like
other 17-year-old.
In his 40s?
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, okay, there's a major disconnect here. Now, granted, Paul was older as well, the guy that she was seeing, but yikes. And Mac is just like, okay, we're going to go out of the town now. And I'm like, all of this goodwill you've built up, you've just destroyed it.
Yeah, Norma's probably.
And Norma's okay. Norma's okay with it.
Yeah.
Right.
It is very weird. That is just a thing I don't. It's hard
gross.
to understand. Yeah,
it's gross. I don't like it, and it's gross. But I'm still, this honestly is still going to go in my box of like self-care movies.
Nice.
Even though it's about murder and and people people
very
die.
Barely.
Very barely.
Is it really? Yeah. There's a couple characters die, and the Vera thing is kind of just like, come on.
Right. This is no. This is not a perfect movie by any means, but it is perfect for me. It is something I would definitely like throw on in the background or make a cup of tea and like cozy up with. It is a very cozy mystery. Yeah, it is. And I like those.
It does not. And even though it is kind of a complicated web of characters, it's not, you don't need to focus that hard on it too, I don't think. I think it's kind of like it is engaging while you're watching it, but I think you could even like probably, especially if you've already seen it, do other things while you're watching it. Kind of just like as a background like story, I guess. Just check in with Mac.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly bought Edward Arnold as a blind guy.
Yeah, his performance is it's not bad.
It's not, it would be better if he's actually blind, of course, but it's also not overly exaggerated. I think there's only one dumb moment of face touching, and it's in the beginning of the film.
Very beginning,
and it goes by so fast you forget it's even there. But he uses a cane. He uses a guide dog.
I think having those helps his performance because you're like, he's a guide dog. So, you know, yes, I think that's kind of definitely. Like, I think that definitely does help.
Well, and if you noticed his in particular, his eye lines, he has whole conversations of people and he's facing the other direction. I think that is so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely not bad. He is, I think you mostly buy him. It's kind of funny because like the character, there's a handful of times, which I guess it was like a wide shot, so it might have been that he was like looking off, but there was a couple times where someone was like, oh, you're blind, aren't you? And I'm like, how do they know that? Like, I couldn't tell that he was blind right now, but
right.
But it could be that I'm not seeing what's going on, but it is kind of funny the way that they like interact with him as a blind character. Like, I think like there's multiple times where people are like, oh, but you're blind. Oh, you're blind.
Yes.
Like they're realizing it in a moment when he doesn't have Friday or anything. He's just like sitting and you're like, okay.
Right. But but it's never, you know, he's definitely a character who's not here to like wallow in his blindness or be sad or be upset because he's blind. He's a gumshoe. He's a detective. He's here to do what he does and solve a case. Yeah,
it is kind of interesting how, I mean, I think like, wonder is much more comfortable in his blindness than even some like a lot of characters we see more recently. I wonder if in the 40s just the fact that if you're blind, you're blind. Like, and there isn't this bullshit about like, oh, maybe you could get your vision back, like, and all that. Like, I wonder if that is part of the reason why these characters seem much more comfortable, because there's not like that weird eugenicsy vibe of like at any time, you know, maybe there'll be a cure for blindness or whatever.
True, but if we're also talking about movies in this time period as pure escapism,
then you have a character that's comfortable in their blindness. Well, you could just not have a blind character at all, I guess. Yeah,
but I mean, they took the time to actually write a blind character, a blind detective.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Oh, it's sad to think that that's because it's escapism. Why wouldn't you want that now?
Well, I'm right. But I mean, maybe, you know, this whole story was written, oh, we're going to write a noir story, but oh, wouldn't it be cool if blind guy? Wouldn't it be great if the hard-boiled detective was blind?
Yeah, which would be cool.
He'd be at such a disadvantage, but he's not.
But he's not. Yeah, it is. It's interesting, that he is very, like, it's part of his character. It is almost very comfortable in it that the movie doesn't even people are kind of, he uses it as part of his whole thing, but the movie also isn't like totally being like patting itself on the back of like, look how cool this story is, you know, like it is actually kind of subtle in a way that I think,
which is refreshing.
Yeah.
No, I'm down. It just, have a blind character be blind. Fine, it's totally fine.
It's interesting. I mean, like, I think that you wouldn't necessarily have a movie like this now without it trying to be something more like, oh, this is saying something about blindness, or you know, like it would be a little bit more ham-fisted if you did this now.
The plot of the film doesn't revolve around the fact that Mac is blind. It's not about him trying to get back into like being a detective and relearn everything.
Right.
This is a story about a spy plot, and the person who cracks the case just happens to be blind.
Right, it's more like identity specific.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Why don't we still do that? Like, that's the weird thing to me, is like that seems more natural and like also more current in a way of like, yes, disabilities are identities. They're part of who you are and they're part of who a character is, which is why you shouldn't get abled actors to play them, because it is who you are, just like how you want to cast people of color to play characters.
Yes.
Obviously.
I mean, who knows? Maybe blind people in noir movies was a thing, or there was a lot of blind people in 1940s movies. I don't think there was.
There's not, because there's not that many movies that we could watch from 1940s, so I think it's pretty uncommon. There's actually a lot of the Hays Code movies, like during that time period. There's actually very few blind characters, which I'm also like, wonder why that is.
Interesting.
But yeah, it is.
Well, and people liked this character enough to make a sequel, to make another movie starring him.
Yeah, it is. It did well for 42. It's like it made $300,000. You're like, oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh Lord. That's how much Iron Man's suit costs.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't know.
No,
don't know
but
if that's
like
true, but
also for real, yes.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's very funny. But yeah, I mean it did, yeah, it got a sequel. But yeah, it is just kind of it also seems so forgotten to time as well. Like it seems just so okay. I think that era of movies is somewhat forgotten. Like you just don't.
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, people don't talk about them in the mainstream, but
Yeah.
I think you have people who are all about those movies. I mean, you can still take noir classes in college or film school, or
Though a lot of those were like. I feel like a lot of the classics are pre-code.
Yeah. Well, and I can't, I've been throwing around the term noir this entire podcast, and to be honest, this movie is like baby's first noir. I mean, it's the style itself isn't really there in this particular movie. They classify this as a thriller. This is not a thriller. It's kind of a weird comedy, but it's definitely not a thriller. Not even a drama. I don't know. It's this weird.
It almost has
thing.
the same. Like Mr. Magoo is almost like an extremely different. A different movie in a lot of ways, but almost the vibe of just kind of genre vibe is almost similar. Like it's still like even though he's such a better character than Mr. Magoo, it still kind of feels like overall it's this. It's like their people are doing crimes, but it's like not really a crime drama in the same way.
Right. They're not. Their crimes aren't out. These people aren't out to hurt anybody. In Mr. Magoo, it's a jewel. It's a jewel thief.
Right. Right.
The whole impetus for this, and in this movie, it's a formula.
Right, which is for a weapon, like, so it is, it's technically high stakes, but the movie doesn't really want you to think it's that high stakes, or like they're not playing up that like, oh, these people are villainous, or really trying to be especially. I mean, they are kind of in some, there are some scenes where you're like, oh my god, like, but a lot of it is just kind of, they're a little bit just kind of plotting more than they are vindictive and evil in the same way. But yeah, it's just kind of a, it's a little bit of, it's just it's rolling along. It really is not trying to like make you feel like, oh, crime or drama or like, you're kind of just, it's a little bit of a,
it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to sit and watch and have popcorn. It's a popcorn movie. It's fun.
You have to eat popcorn.
There you go. Yeah.
Get your senses, your non-visual senses.
Right. And this movie is for free. It's living on the Internet Archive. Anyone can watch it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely, if this sounds interesting to you, go watch it. Like,
oh yeah, totally. If you like movies from the 40s, or you like noir or detective movies, absolutely check.
Or you just want to hear like two mid-Atlantic accented women, saying, oh dear, or like, darling, everything, Barbara, to her stepmom, which is what, it was so funny. Or sweet, I think is what she says. It's sweet.
Yes, she calls her sweet.
And she says sweet like 10 times in one scene. It's so funny. She just like, it's like instead of a period, she says sweet. It's very funny.
Yeah. Really fun. Super, super fun. I'm so glad you picked it. I feel much better having watched it.
Yay. Do we have other things to talk about before we get to our blindest cutie?
I think I'm ready.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you want to go first?
Sure. Why not? So I'm giving this film a 2400.
Nice.
I want to go higher, but I think it's holding, the one thing that's holding it back is all of these actors are cited. So
yeah,
but I had so much fun. This movie is delightful. I was delighted after watching. It is not a perfect film by any means. There's still some objectionable content. Vera, mostly the way Vera is treated, I have a real problem with. But
there's also a kind of racist butler character.
There is kind of a racist butler character,
but he's barely in the movie.
He's in the first scene and the last scene.
Yeah.
Yep. And he and Friday have exploits together. But it's so different. It's so cool, and not at all what I would think about when I'm thinking about 1940s detective movies.
Yeah.
So for that, yeah, I'm at a 2400, and this is definitely going into my pile of fun Melissa movies.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it is a great. I thinking about you doing him as a character.
I
makes
know.
me very happy.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
I would enjoy watching that movie even more than this movie.
Aw, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna give it a 2150. Maybe it is just weird personal things, and then I wanted them to be more real Nazis. But I think it's a fun movie, and I don't think there's a lot of things to be like about. I think it's, they use his blindness in a really fun way, and that, he is not like, well, I mean, he's a man, so he doesn't really get blind men don't get damseled exactly, but he's not subjugated or like treated like when people treat him differently, which they do in some places. He always kind of gets the upper hand, which is just kind of a fun thing to watch. And he's like inventive. I think it's just like there just was not, I never fully grasped onto it. I think it was just kind of, it passed me by. It was not like, I wasn't like, I want my hour and a half back. It's an hour and a half to begin with. But also it was like, it's engaging enough, but I think I just never fully got a good window into any of the characters. And so I never, which, I don't think necessarily this kind of movie really has to do or sets out to do. So I think that was part of it, is I was like, I want to empathize with the character, feel like emotionally invested in a way. Whereas I think it's just kind of fun watching him do stuff, but you're not really meant to empathize with anyone that much. So I think probably my 2150 is from, more personal bias than anything. But yeah, it's not a bad movie. It's not toxic representation of blind people. It's totally, I think I wish we had more movies now that were just kind of a main character that's blind, and that, like, even though it's a very important part of the plot, it's not, a spectacle, or it's not like some trying to say some ableist bullshit about, and thinking it's edgy or whatever. So yeah, so it's definitely for 1942. It's a fun thing to remember, and completely lost to history. So it's fun that we get to kind of unearth it and give people the chance to check it out. So yeah. That's my rating. Eyes in the Night.
Brilliant.
The name of it is it was really hard for me to remember. I don't know why.
Well, it's funny because the trailer for this movie, the first thing you see is like a close up of Mac's eyes, and I'm so glad I didn't watch the trailer before I watched this movie, because I would have gone in on a really sour note, because I'm just like, oh wow, great, close up of eyes. That's so inventive. And
it's not in the movie.
No, not in the movie at all.
So weird. Yeah. Yeah, so it is pretty, I mean, I guess he technically still has eyes probably, and then he is in the night. He does stuff in the night, so yeah. I guess that's how you could remember it. But
I suppose.
Yeah, and he does say it apparently in the movie, which I forgot he says it. So yeah, there you go. Eyes in the Night. We did it.
Perfect.
What are we blindsided by this week?
Right.
Do you want to go first?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, mine is kind of lame, but not lame to me. I was completely blindsided by the lovely food cart nice. Park that is next to Eastport Plaza on 82nd Avenue. So yeah, I've been going to Eastport Plaza and going to the movie theater when that was a thing. The post office is also there. It's an easy post office to get to. And yesterday was Cinco de Mayo, and I was kind of in search of tacos. So I was like, I'm going past there on my way home. I'll just run into Taco Bell. Well, that's impossible because of COVID. So I was just tired and hungry. And then I noticed finally across the street as I was walking to the bus stop, oh, wow, there are food carts over there. And it smells like they're open. So I just kind of wandered. Yeah, so I just kind of wandered across the street and wandered into this parking lot, basically, or park that is set up as a food cart area. And there were wonderful food carts there. There's all kinds of international food and some Americana and ice cream and dessert and all kinds of stuff. So I had a wonderful time I got me some chicken curry, some naan, had an elephant ear. Oh, God.
I want to check this out now.
Wonderful. Yeah, we have to go over there because it's so good. And the folks who run the carts are really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like COVID has really helped us to remember how important food cart pods are, because I think we all know they're important, but then there's a lot of developers making them seem so
now that I know that that is there, I refuse, because there's a lot of like fast food restaurants in Eastport Plaza. I refuse to go over there now that I know that across the street there's better and like actual cooked food waiting for me. I
love the food cart pod so much.
So that's food cart pod on 82nd next to Eastport Plaza is what I'm blindsided by.
Nice. No, I don't want to go track that down. Always love a good new food cart pod. My what I'm blindsided by this week is a book. It is Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay.
Yes.
I've been Libbying it. I'm reading it on Libby. I don't think that's a verb, but
stop trying to make fetch happen.
Exactly. I rented it on Libby, the audiobook, and so I've been listening to it. Sadly, I always get sad when it's not read by the author. So that's a little sad, but it's the narrator does a good job still. But it's just a series of essays by Roxane Gay, who's a feminist. Both, I guess, is scholar the right. I don't. It seems so stuffy for, but a feminist writer and cultural critic and stuff. And it's just a lot of. I think the book came out in 2014. So, but it's a lot of like different cultural media, talking about media from feminist critique lens, and it's just a lot of also her specific thoughts about privilege and stuff, and things that I think are not always exactly it's called Bad Feminist, so they are kind of not always the most mainstream feminist ideas, but stuff that I really relate to and like. But it is just a series of essays. It is 12 hours, so it's a lot of content to read, but I'm really enjoying it right now, so I definitely recommend having a listen, or if you have eyes, you can always use those to read it as well. But yeah, so that's Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay.
Nice. I would suggest, after you're done with Roxane, or with this book, because I know she's written a few more, check out Samantha Irby.
Okay.
Her books are super fun, and she's really funny. Her and Lindy West are kind of sort of, I'm not going to say similar because they have two different writing styles, but in the same camp.
Okay.
But yeah, her books are great.
Nice. Awesome. I will have to check it out. I'm always looking for more Libby. Thanks to rent on Libby.
Nice.
Though I have a long list of holds, and it keeps being like, your hold's ready. I'm like, I only have 3 weeks to read each book.
I know. I go through the same thing constantly. It is a nightmare. Yeah.
Libby problems, but it's still such a great app. I still love Libby.
Yeah, no, wouldn't change it for the world, but yeah.
So Melissa, what are we doing next week?
Right. Well, in keeping with the theme, kind of, next week we're watching 23 Paces to Bleecker Street. It is available for free on YouTube. For now at least, but yeah, it should still be hanging out there. And basically it is a thriller about a blind writer living in London who overhears a kidnapping plot, and when the police don't believe him, decides to solve the case himself.
Nice. Got it. We're solving all the cases. I'm excited. We'll solve the case of representation.
Hopefully. This looks like it'll be a lot of fun, or at least interesting.
I'm excited, and I love anything that I can just click on a YouTube link and watch.
Amen.
That's it. That's the podcast. I'm excited.
Did it.
Come back next week. Our theme song is by Lucia Fasano. Our YouTube is Citizen White Cane Podcast. Our Twitter is White Cane Pod. Our Instagram and our Facebook are both Citizen White Cane. You can send us an email to citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voice message, there's a link in the show notes. What mysteries have you solved? What murder mysteries have you solved as a blind person?
Could you answer every single geography question on where in the world is Carmen Sandiego correctly?
And what is your best Mid-Atlantic accent?
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, and that you have to send a voice message just by definition. So any of those, there's a link in the show notes. Subscribe to the podcast and give us a rating and a review. Keep coming back to the podcast. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Listen